What up, Naughty Steppers? Connor Whitmore here again with another video for you on the Nawtystep channel, and it is time for another Extra Nawties monthly roundup. Gonna go over some EPs, albums and compilations that I wasn't able to review in full, but which I still thought interesting enough to share my opinions on them with you. Shorter reviews because there's a lot to get through, so I'll just be identifying my main points with each one and hopefully showing you a couple of things that you hadn't heard of before. Stuff released on the 29th of August and after will not be reviewed in this video, but the next one. Some of the releases in this video are actually from the end of July. And the releases are covered in alphabetical order by way of artist name or record label name if it's a compilation, and are all linked in the description box down below. Lastly, there will be a small list of special mentions at the end of the video, ones that I couldn't talk about here because then there would just be too many, but definitely check them out as well. And so, kicking off this latest installment, we have the new mini compilation from Black Label, Black Ops 5. I feel like it's got to a point where I just expect to dislike these compilations, most of them just droning on and on with next to nothing interesting about them. But these are actually quite decent. I like the energy of the first and third one, although the latter does go on for a little bit too long. And the Achios is quite good, not on the level of his Labyrinth EP, but really liking the definition of his sound once again. Jekyll and Hyde's VIP of one of my favourite tunes of the year so far in Broadcast is slightly messy but a nice little mutation, some good sounds in there though, and I think worthwhile overall. But for me, in summation, Black Ops 5 is just a reminder that Rhythm is by no means dying quite yet, and there are people out there still keeping it very interesting. Now, I've not really enjoyed the majority of the Brig stuff over the last year or so, bereft of colour or flavour, no life, not fun, everything that he's best for basically it's been without. But this EP is the exact opposite, his pirate step in full flow, cheeky vocal touches, melody, fruity synths, gritty dubstep, playful beats, it's him in his best form. And a couple of songs here that I think will really grow on me over time, as my favourites from him have. Good to see him doing this stuff again. Okay, so I found out about Bushbaby earlier this year through the fantastic Woman's Touch, and these songs don't quite reach that level, but this is a very solid EP. My favourite has to be the opener, great bassline, dark vibe, brilliant vocal sample to match. The following two aren't quite as infectious, but they definitely add to the whole aura of the EP. Just some naughty, underground, night-based tunes here really, simple as. Now, on a level of sonic variation within this string of EPs that Chime has put out in the last year or so, I think this one is definitely up there, different genres but also a larger wealth of sounds on offer. Each song has a different vibe and feel to it, which is great, not quite as good on a musicality level for me, not as many special melodic moments. The vocal in particular, the one that we get on Surface, I've just heard vocals from him much better before, I must admit, and this one, yeah, it doesn't quite work. But again, he just knows at all times when to spice things up with his music, never sticks with particular sounds or sections for too long. Even the songs that I'm not that massive on here, I still find very interesting on a conceptual level. I think we do just have to admit now that Chime is one of the best in dubstep at the moment. Great that he got Asauri involved as well, that man is on the up. Okay, make no mistake, this new Confession EP, Alchemy 5, is nowhere near as good as its predecessor, Alchemy 4, one of my favourite EPs of the year, but it's still quite good. The vibes are there, it's an everyday house compilation, but there aren't that many special ideas in all honesty. Couple of really good tracks here though, notably from Cave Studio and Jan Nobly and Hawk, some nice sounds in the Indocs, Barrelan and Malive numbers as well. I mean, it's alright, just pales in comparison to what came before. Has to be said that a certain standard has been set now for the Confession label. I must admit, I'm not huge on any of these songs, plain and simple. The definition of a large number of the sounds isn't quite there, meaning that, as squelchy and industrial as they all are, I don't get the full force of them. There's a good amount of sounds available, but the sounds themselves in combination just don't hit the mark. 3 of them sound far too similar, and even though I enjoy the second track Doom Tomb as a change, it still seriously lacks in execution. Just doesn't feel rounded or full, a bit weak for what it's trying to do, and goes overboard on the squelch factor. Not enough variety for me as well. So Dylan Nathaniel has already put out a mad EP this year, and I wasn't expecting this one to top that, and whilst I was right, it's still pretty decent, just not as many top draw tracks, similar to Confession. It's just some more cheeky underground tech house vibes from him, so easy to groove along to, not special ideas but definitely fun, sits in your head and just allows you to ride its wave. Still some very good songs in here. Mind Sensation with Jack Beats is very interesting and wobbly. Checking You has one of the most infectious bass lines I've heard in a fair while. Just trudges along more than it wows compared to the last EP though, potentially because there are more songs. Very interesting mixtape here from the duo formerly known as GTA. Always did stand for Good Times Ahead, but now they've officially stretched out the acronym. Some pretty out there ideas here, decent amount of variety with other musicians involved, mostly house but bits of Mumba, Jungle Terror, etc. Enjoyable and well pieced together, does what it wants to do well. On the originals front, I'm particularly feeling Waffle House and In the Cut. My favourite though would have to be their remix of For Mind by Dogblood. Really cheeky edit they've done there. Fully recommend if you haven't heard it yet. Proper bouncy tribal festival tune. Big ups for that one. Yeah. Once again, I just don't get the hype with GRiZ at all. I mean, I rate the attempt at fusing jazz and funk elements with heavy EDM, but this is in no way what I imagine when I think of a perfect concoction of those two elements. GRiZtronics is decent, quite juicy, liking the extraterrestrial appeal of it, but that snare completely stops me from enjoying the drops. The final track here being a certain mess that I'm not sure I ever want to set my ears on again. And lastly, why is the EP so short? A bit confusing, but yeah, overall just not that great. Now, it's rare that you enjoy the ideas on every track of an EP, just 3 songs here, but I'm really enjoying them in all their different ways. The emotion of the opener, the magnetic appeal of Castaway King, the weighty approach of In My Arms, it's just mid-tempo done pretty well. A lot of the execution stops me from fully loving this EP, sections that need fleshing out and refining all round. But I can see what he's trying to do. The potential is huge if the overall production quality is fine-tuned, the ideas and mood are there. And there's never a moment where I feel like I want to skip through these songs. On an ideas level, easily the best bite this EP I've heard so far. If you like GRiZ, then this is a big recommend. Just another really solid Brostep EP here from Jarvis, his second of the year. Loads of fantastic moments across these 3 songs. Similar to Chime, just knows what to do with his sound, when to spice things up at the right moments. Gets the emotion and mood very spot on for a lot of it as well, with certain vocal samples, very fitted to their respective songs. Some moments where the gaps are quite obvious, not quite enough going on but they aren't many. First 2 songs I find more enthralling than the last. But overall I think I prefer it to the previous EP, one of the last few truly flying the Brostep flag. Producers like him need to be cherished and valued more going forward. Brostep is the roots now. Another mid-tempo leaning project here. This album is actually alright. I didn't expect to enjoy it very much as past stuff from Lick hasn't really done anything for me. Tracks like Dawnless, No Way, Body, although feeling a little bit thrown together, do showcase a lot of good sounds and the heaviest parts are pretty well executed. There is some bad stuff in here too. Poison I find to be a bit of a mess, various other drops in here not doing all that much, but there's nothing particularly ordinary I wouldn't say. All the mood setting stuff surrounding the drops is pretty good, works well towards the title of the album, and the general atmosphere throughout is welcomed. And I appreciate the more orchestral finish with the final 2 as well, has an album feel to it, so yeah, really not that bad at all. So much good about this album. A lot of it is truly euphoric stuff, reaching for the heavens dubstep, does what you want it to do. But large parts of it do also need work in terms of execution, the relationship between sections, many of which I feel are rushed into a bit, others drag on a bit too much. I much prefer the second half. Oblivion, Sector 5, Lemnisata, they all pick up the album effectively. Fundamentally though, it does do a lot right for what it is, a fair few ideas that aren't enthralling, but the act of doing this style across an album is done quite well. Obviously for those who enjoy the more melodic and glittery side of dubstep, but more particular as I recommend would be Xylent. This Oski EP is okay, a couple of moments where all the elements work together really well, but no ideas truly blowing me away here. The drops in the Tainan collab are my favourites, pretty wild and well cut for the most part, cool tune in spite of a couple of off sounds and moments, but the rest of the heaviness is just very plain and ordinary. A lot of the execution generally is off, percussion mostly, and the Ominous remix isn't one of the most enthralling things he's put out this year, I think it's fair to say. This is pretty savage, industrial, glitchy, demented music, quite full on but a lot to get out of it. Really well cut, well assembled, keeps you guessing, and puts an image in your head of a dystopian, futuristic world. Without many particular moments to hang on to, not catchy in any way, but one of those where you just have to marvel at how it's constructed. Amazing contrast between the slower moments and the quicker ones, different genre approaches on show as well. And if you're a fan of Eprom, G. Jones, Levitate, artists like that, then you really will like this EP. This SampliFire EP is alright, I just don't see these songs doing all that much. It's like a display of metallic dubstep sounds without much inventive conjoining of them. I like the aliveness of it, and the design is pretty on point for the whole thing, but there aren't any ideas making me want to go back to the EP. And I feel as a whole experience it does drag on a bit, at points too noisy and repetitive as well. Some really nice flickers in there, don't get me wrong, and I think more than past projects from him, this one seems more aware of its direction, when to introduce new ideas. But overall, I think it's one of those where that approach just is for some people and others not, because there are a lot of people out there that like it. I can appreciate it in other ways, but in terms of those drop ideas and the heaviest moments of it, I'm not really feeling it. This is the perfect example of a very listenable, rounded album covering many bass genres that is very well made, but which doesn't have a lot of star quality. After all these years, it's still clear that ShockOne knows how to produce well, no problems on the design front as well, also how to create an arc not only within an album, but within each individual song. But I'm not sure there's one tune here that really grabs me, unputdownable if you will, not quite hitting the mark like some of the songs from Universus. Closest to that would probably have to be the title track, real presence to that one. Still though, as I said, overall, as a whole LP listen, very enjoyable, it's a story, and that's what you want from an album. Classically fun and full of life here from Stoltenhoff, multiple genres, off the wall, wild and wacky. Quick pace hardstyle, festival jungle terror, trap, psytrance, it covers a lot and is just so stacked with ideas and flavour. Definitely prefer the first two tracks to the second two, more infectious, more concentrated with the ideas, better execution. But most of all, I'm grateful that we've got labels like Barong constantly bringing that upbeat, uninhibited vibe to bass music. It's much needed and they've arguably become the most reliable label for that. Penultimately, we have the new Trilogy EP, and Ultimate was always going to take quite some beating, and I think it's fair to say that this one doesn't quite live up to that in any way. A lot of cool sounds on show from him as per, but nowhere near as many, fewer moments of surprise, the ideas not as inventive, the sections just don't gel together well either. It's got the fruitiness, colour and flavour of his style, but it isn't working as one towards something, it seems random and scattered. The execution is really quite off in places as well. I know he set such a high standard with the Ultimate EP, but this one for me is not even close. And finally, the new Valentino Khan EP is for the most part pretty much exactly what I expected. The style is very similar across most of these songs, all the little percussive ticks, slightly formulaic, but I can't deny it is a great listen. Some songs are comparatively flat ideas-wise, definitely wanted something more cheeky and inventive from the Chris Lorenzo collaboration. But all six here have something about them, whether it's sounds, note placement, vibe. Pony being one of my favourite tunes of the year so far. Aside from that track though, it's more an appreciation of Valentino Khan's style than individual sounds per se. And so that brings the August 2019 edition of the Extra Nawties monthly roundup to a close. The special mentions from last month are Autokiller, Darla, Heritage, Kilrina, Krilla, Mado, Moxie, Sin and Wolfie Wolf. I'll put the links to all of those in the description box down below. But with regards to the EPs, albums and compilations reviewed in this video, which ones did you enjoy, which others not so much, are there any that I missed out? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this roundup video, then be sure to give it a big old thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell along the way so you can be notified whenever I upload a new video to the channel, and my social media accounts are in the description box down below. Next to my head there should be another Extra Nawties monthly roundup video if you're looking for some more dark electronic tunage to explore. And lastly, if it's naughty, then you know guys, so be sure as always to keep it naughty and stay safe. And I shall see all of you legends in the next one. Peace out.